This is Matthew Cratter from Bitcoin University, and today I wanted to talk about why fiat money is death. And I think this is not an over-exaggeration, as you're going to see in this video. Fiat money is just any government-issued currency that's not backed by anything like US dollars, euros, yen, Australian dollars, Canadian dollars, etc. And apparently there's an endless supply of this stuff. We have the famous quote from Ben Bernanke, former chair of the Fed. Back in 2002, he wrote that the US government has a technology called a printing press, or today its equivalent, electronic equivalent, that allows it to produce as many US dollars as it wishes at essentially no cost. This is really an exorbitant privilege. We have Neil Kashkari at the Fed just a couple years ago saying there's an infinite amount of cash at the Fed, and he said this on 60 Minutes. Every time the central bank or banks print up more money, it picks the pockets of savers, and it steals the economic energy of millions who've sacrificed their finite time on Earth for money that the state can then print up for free and dilute everybody. Money printing and inflation that's caused by money printing are especially a stealth tax on the working and middle classes. Wealthy people have better means to hedge. Holding fiat money makes you poor and keeps you a wage slave, as we can see here with the declining purchasing power of the US dollar over time. Holding fiat also helps to fund government theft, bank bailouts, bank bail-ins, aka theft. This is what happened in Cyprus when there was just a state grab of the assets at the bank in order to recapitalize the banks. Fiat money funds huge capital misallocation, bridges to nowhere. When you have a money printer, you don't have to sit back and make the hard choices that you do when you cannot simply print up your money. Fiat also funds socialist policies that destroy previously prosperous countries like Argentina, for example. Fiat destroys your standard of living as well. Your grandfather ate steak and butter. Your father ate ground beef and olive oil. You eat fake meat fried in industrial lubricants. Your grandfather had furniture made from solid wood, and you sit on off-gassing cheap plastic and particle board furniture. Your grandfather owned a house and some acreage. You live in an urban box like a laboratory animal. And this is in part because the money is so bad that investors seek to preserve their purchasing power by buying up houses that they don't really need to live in. Thus, they add a monetary premium to housing. They make it more expensive than it otherwise would be if we had sound money. And thus, this contributes to the housing crisis and to homelessness. Fiat money also gives you, as we said, fiat food. It gives you a fiat body. It gives you fiat art and culture, very superficial, high time preference culture. And fiat makes you a slave of the state and then forces you to fund your own captivity because the government doesn't bring in enough revenue. What it does is it has to print up the difference, and it uses that to hire people who will surveil you. 20,000 new staff, costing $80 billion at the IRS. Fiat and especially CBDCs help to lock people into a digital prison of state control, as we see in China and increasingly in the US. This is from out of China. China's social credit scoring system is getting a CBDC upgrade. Now China's digital wallet app, WeChat or Alipay, only allows people with a 550 or higher social credit score to recharge their electric cars. Something similar, a minimum social credit score of 550 is required to charge your electric car and buy food from self-service grocery stores and vending machines in China. If your score is below 550, you can't eat or travel. Chinese people are prisoners living in an open-air digital prison. And if we let our fiat money transition into a central bank digital currency, we are going to be suffering from the same thing in Europe and in the US. Fiat also funds the forever wars that kill the young and the poor mostly, while enriching the state and its military-industrial complex. Cronies, this is a classic essay that I've been meaning to discuss on this channel by Alex Gladstein, The Invisible Cost of War in the Age of Quantitative Easing. Through its increasingly unscrupulous monetary policy, the U.S. government officials mask the costs of war from the American public. Bitcoin could fix this, and his basic thesis is something like this. Fiat allows governments to fight wars without public consent and without raising taxes, which people may want to reconsider the war if they realize they can be taxed to pay for it. But with money printing, you can just print the difference. Expensive and unpopular. This is a quote from that article. Expensive and unpopular U.S. military operations like the Iraq War would not be possible to sustain for decades, including Afghanistan, of course, without zero interest rate policy, ZIRP, and quantitative easing, which is when the Fed prints up money and buys government bonds in order to fund government deficit spending. These carry significant negative externalities for the average citizen, mostly coming through in the form of inflation of consumer goods and other things. The money that you hold is an ethical choice. And if you hold US dollars or other fiat, you are actively helping to fund bank bailouts and banker bonuses, government surveillance and overreach, socialist economic policies, capital misallocation, concentration camps as we're seeing in China, tyranny, theft, and forever wars. By contrast, when you exchange your US dollars or other fiat for Bitcoin, you are actively helping to defund all of these. When you vote in an election, usually nothing happens. But when you vote with your money, when you exchange your fiat for Bitcoin, your vote actually counts. When you stack sats and put them away forever, you weaken the US dollar and strengthen Bitcoin. When you stack sats, you weaken the demons and the ghouls who reside in Washington, D.C. and at the IMF and the World Bank and the WEF. When you stack sats, you withdraw your consent from demonic policies. When you stack sats, you defund the demons and their insider trading and dealing, their paternalism, their rules for thee, but not for me. Fiat money is death. Remember this, that the fiat regime is one where an endless money printer subsidizes endless bad decisions until it all comes to a catastrophic end, culminating in hyperinflation and economic collapse every single time. This is how every fiat currency ends. Fiat is shiat. Fiat is the money of demons and ghouls and soulless bankers and politicians. By contrast, Bitcoin is freedom money. Bitcoin is peer-to-peer money that you can send to anyone on earth. Bitcoin is a bearer asset that you can store in your brain without any counterparty risk. No banks or bankers required. Bitcoin is money that cannot be debased by bankers or confiscated by totalitarian governments. Bitcoin is ethical money for 8 billion people on earth. So just say no to unethical, dirty fiat money. Fiat is death. Bitcoin is life. I think you should choose Bitcoin. It's not going to be a video tomorrow, but I look forward to seeing all of you on Tuesday with another video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.